Welcome to Startup Hacks, a We Global Studios podcast. We explore the stories and secret strategies that women entrepreneurs use to save time and money when bootstrapping and building their businesses. I'm your host, Fernanda Carapinha, and today I am so excited to welcome Dana Loberg. Dana is the founder and CEO of Leo AR, and she is a Yale alum and graduate of Stanford StartX, 500 Startups, BetaWorks, and Deutsche Telekom Accelerators. Dana has the combined ability to visually capture where the markets are going and has both the right and left brain talent to execute a multi-dimensional company like Leo AR. And I'm truly jealous. Welcome, Dana.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you on the show. So tell us a little bit about yourself and where you grew up and how you got started in AR.
Sure. So it's kind of been a long path that I would say is pretty untraditional of most Silicon Valley tech entrepreneurs, which is great because it kind of can give hope to people that don't have kind of the Stanford MIT background.
Yeah.
I grew up in West Los Angeles, and I was someone who did like a variety of things. I was one of the top volleyball players in California, but I also, played the piano for over 10 years. I did a lot of sailing. So I was kind of like raised in a way that I was kind of like the Renaissance woman. I wasn't raised in the typical American way of like do one thing and do it well, which is especially something that I think they teach.
Yes.
In entrepreneurship and focus and be good at one thing. So when I went to Yale and I was a history major, I actually did my thesis on technology and the impact of tech on religion, not knowing at all I would get into technology. So it's just, wow. I really like reading and research, and I like learning about history and loops and how like communities grow. And I found it really hard when I got into the real world, just the real world and how it worked. I remember my first job was at McCann Erickson in advertising. And I just want to be frank, like I did have a lot of jobs. Like I'm not someone that was really, really successful in the corporate world and then decided to like change into entrepreneurship, which obviously does happen for some people. I kind of was one of those people that was shocked by what I witnessed in the corporate world. And then I was like, oh God, like there's no way I'm going to survive here. And then found it really difficult to find my way because obviously out of Yale or Harvard or any of these schools, Duke, anywhere, everyone kind of have these traditional, like, I'm going to work at JP Morgan and then I'm going to go to business school and then I'm going to, start my own business maybe. But for me, I felt like I tried a bunch of different jobs and I never really knew what the right path was. So I failed at a lot of different things in New York City when I first got out of Yale. But what I did learn, obviously, through all these failures and trying new gigs is that like, entrepreneurship was really the only path that I was going to survive in. Because I realized in the corporate world that I wasn't built to do one task over and over and over again like a monkey. Not to say that people in the corporate world are monkeys, but like it definitely is a certain personality that's willing to play the political game and climb the ladder and stick it out to get the corner office.
Yep.
And then basically I ended up moving out of New York City to San Francisco on a whim. I was just like 6 years into New York City and I wanted something completely different and kind of go back to my roots, but not be in Los Angeles. So I sold everything and moved to San Francisco. And that was a whole new experience going from like the corporate 401k and the paychecks and all the like, you have your mental day and your health care and kind of everything set up for you in the East Coast. And then going to the West Coast was like a whole new frontier. Like everyone had their own business and people were, they didn't have a 401k. And it was true entrepreneurship from like the first day I landed in San Francisco. And I was like, whoa, it was pretty scary, to be honest. So anyway, my first job was with a woman and she was building her own PR social media marketing company that was pretty innovative for the space. And we worked with high tech companies in Redwood City and Palo Alto doing their pre-launch, launch, and post-launch on TechCrunch and other publications. And I got to put my writing skills to use. And I saw how I was her, first and second hire. So we really built the company together, like 2-3 people out of her kitchen and grew it to 10 people and kind of being a part of that process really gave me inspiration to start on my own ventures. And that's how I got started.
And when you moved to San Francisco, had you thought you were going to become an entrepreneur and kind of pursue that trajectory, or were you just moving and get out of New York and start over?
I was moving to get out. Like, I knew I would be like Sex in the City and like 50 and single. And I was like, is that really the trajectory I want in my future? And I obviously wanted to slow things down and kind of take life more seriously, because New York City can be very like fun and you just feel like a child all over in an adult city. But I was ready to get more serious. And when I moved, I was a volleyball coach, which is totally random, but I didn't go to San Francisco knowing this is the tech mecca of the world and you're going to be working in tech. It was really just getting out of New York into something new, which is also pretty interesting. So I was doing coach in a private school in the city, and knew that wasn't where I wanted to go either. It wasn't the path I wanted, but it was a job, and I learned a lot from it. But when this woman was looking for her first hire, I was like, oh, this will be perfect for me. I did a lot of writing and copywriting and advertising in New York City, and I've always been a researcher and writer, so it came always very easily. So it was the right move to do that.
And did you feel, I want to ask you about Leo AR in a minute, but did you feel in terms of your working style and just the way that you think that it was better served in kind of an entrepreneurial setting? And I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about that versus kind of what's expected of you intellectually in a corporate setting.
Yeah, I think I'm a very hardworking person. Like, I remember, and just in general, my whole life has been like so disciplined, right? Like, I did volleyball since I was 4 years old. I did piano since I was 7. I took it all the way through volleyball, obviously through college. And piano, I ended up stopping at 18 years old, but I did like crazy tests in piano, like auditory tests, performance tests, sight reading tests. Like, I was like considered a master in piano in a way. So my whole life has just been very hardworking. Like, my parents didn't believe in just like, oh, you can just chill out and play video games. So I felt like in the corporate world, but I felt like I wasn't learning enough. I didn't feel like I was learning new things. So I remember at like lunchtime, I would go to the library every day. And then I would come back like 2 hours later and they'd be like, where were you? And I was like, I was at the library. Like, I just felt like I was like not learning enough, actually. Wow. So when I got into tech, I was so excited because it's like never the same, like every day there's new technology, things change all the time. So I was like so excited to find a job that like constantly kept me thinking and on my toes, because that's exactly kind of how I was like my entire life. And I really love it. And
so walk us through your decision and at what point you decided you were going to start your own company.
Well, obviously working for a new startup was difficult. Requires a lot of hours and time, and like in tech, everything is kind of 24/7, especially when you're young and you're trying to move up. So like, I felt like weekends I was working, and late at nights I was sending response emails, because in PR you have to we had a rule like within 3 seconds you had to respond to your client.
Wow.
Because the client's paying $15,000-$20,000 a month to get this kind of service. It was a very high tiered PR company. Mm-hmm. So I just felt like I worked so hard for this other woman, which is great. Like, she's done super well, but I was like, now I really want to do this for myself. And kind of, I moved it in my head to pursue, like, try my own startup at that time when I was really burnt out, to be honest, after the first year of helping someone build their company.
Right. It's exhausting.
Yeah. It's just as hard as building a company as being someone's first hire or second hire.
Right. And sometimes harder because you're not calling the shots.
Right.
So what was your first venture?
So the first one was called Art Debutante. It was building an online curated marketplace to purchase art that may not be, it's not like a Van Gogh, but it's an up and coming artist. So you kind of it was like before a Patreon, but a Patreon type of model. You become a patron to that artist and allow them to continue painting. And hopefully it increases in value for the artwork that you purchase.
Oh, and is it still in existence?
No, we had co-founder issues, so it fell apart 8 months in. I think it's a pretty common problem, but it was pretty devastating because I do like the idea, and it's obviously a very popular model with like Masterworks and 8 Paddle. There was a whole bunch that kind of came out like a few years later.
Yes.
So it was a very good idea, but we didn't work as co-founders.
So if you don't mind, you don't have to divulge anything personally about your situation, but let's pause here for a second and give some advice to entrepreneurs out there who are looking for a co-founder. Do you have any suggestions about what to do and what not to do?
Yeah, I do actually. I think obviously finding a co-founder is a lot easier than doing any kind of company on your own, especially if you're a first-time founder. So I do think if you're a founder who doesn't have a lot of experience, to not partner with someone else who doesn't have a lot of experience, because I think that like it's smarter to find someone who has experience that you can learn from. And then maybe in your second company, you can go and partner with, once you have all the learnings, you can go and partner with anyone you want, whether they have experience or not. But I think what broke us apart is that both of us were scrambling to kind of figure it out on our own, because it was both our first companies. Right. So my advice would be to kind of find a person, if you're not experienced, more experienced. And also, like, I think work ethic is really important. And I think that, like, ultimately I felt like I was doing a bit more work than she was and more serious about the project. And for her, it felt like a hobby. And so I think it's like working with someone for a good 2 to 3 months before you like divvy out the shares and you get really serious about how you're going to pay each other. Like, you really got to know this person well and work with them a bit to feel them out as far as like, how are they going to work as a co-founder before you really sign up to do it together.
Yeah, 100%. And I also wanted to add that it's also helpful if you think you're more an operator, that you get someone else who's really more kind of big picture oriented, and vice versa, someone so that you have different skill sets as well.
True.
I think that's really helpful. All right, so let's talk about Leo AR and how that all came about, because that's a very high-tech venture.
It's very high tech, yeah. And it doesn't have a normal path either of like, I didn't go out saying I'm going to build the #1 consumer AR app. It was really, as usual, is kind of an extension of where I'd started. So the idea that we started with Leo is that we wanted to build a 2D sticker marketplace for artists to get global distribution of their stickers across chat apps, Slack and all the other platforms for communication. And we started this in 2016, and it's called Moji Lala. And we wanted to build a competitor to Line. Line was building a huge platform for artists and selling $300 million worth of stickers every year. And no one had really built this in the United States. And obviously visual communication continues to be a big way that people communicate. And so we set out to find the artist and build the marketplace, and we did it relatively shortly. In 6 months of launch in 2017, we had over 2,000 artists and 40,000 stickers. And everything was doing really well. Like, we were really excited. It was exciting, fun. It's a fun startup to be working on. But we started to see the behavior of the user moving really from chat to camera. And then we were like, chat kind of was like the last 10 years and the future's in camera. And people were dragging and dropping the stickers into photo and video. And so we were like, the next phase of augmentation and communication is not only going to be text, which it is today with stickers and GIFs, it's going to be augmenting using what we thought would be 2D animated stickers into the camera. So if you had your camera open and you were in the forest, you would have a monkey swinging on the branch. We thought it would be that. So we would like smartly suggest which animated sticker to apply to your video, and then you can augment your video. And so we started to move in this direction, and we're building out a way to scan the objects in the camera. And then ARKit hit. And then we were like, oh my God, this isn't 2D. It's going to be 3D realistic objects, which is way cooler. And just way better visual for communication, right? Because now in the video, you can't really tell what's real and fake when you have the shadows and the 3D dimensions. So we were really excited. Like, our vision completely aligned with where the technology was going. And so we quickly launched Leo AR as fast as we could in like 2018.
Wow.
Yeah. So it had a weird kind of start, but it's definitely, we try to augment text through helping artists and building an artist marketplace. And then Leo AR, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to create an artist marketplace for AR 3D object designers to submit their objects and sell directly to consumers. So it's actually the same playbook as the 2D stickers, but now the 3D world is just it's a way bigger market.
So for listeners that might not know a lot about AR, could you give some examples, like if they were one of your customers, how they would use Leo AR, and any future thought about how your product might be developed in the future and how they might use it and apply it in their everyday life?
Yeah. So today, Leo is one of the easiest places to create an AR video. You basically open the app and it instantly opens a category and the camera. And you tap an object and you instantly see the object in front of you. You can add as many objects as you want. You can add 1,000, you can add 100, or just keep one. And you can do a whole scene. You can move around the room and have a tree in one place, a flamingo in the other, and a lion in the other corner. So you can quickly record it and share it cross-platform. So it's literally one of the easiest ways to create an AR video that even a 3-year-old can create a scene. And the way that I picture this going, which obviously today it's very simple way because AR is so new for people, right? Like a lot of people try our app and they're like, "Oh my God, I didn't know my phone can have a 3D object," and they get really excited, both the parents and the kids. It's a very like family oriented app. So I get to really hear people's first impressions of, when they first see 3D objects, and it's pretty magical for everyone. And then where I see this is going is interesting. Obviously, it's going to move from mobile and iPad into glass. I think, Google and Apple are working on their glasses because to be hands-free and kind of immersed in this digital layer on the existing world is kind of the epitome of where we're going with AR. Because right now it feels very much like a window and a portal. And, I think we've become quickly adjusted to this because of COVID and the screens and Zoom and Skype, how we're all used to communicating through a box, which has been pretty interesting. But the future will be hands-free in a glass. And I imagine kind of the mainstream user, I think Leo AR is something that's going to move into like the Amazon of AR. So I picture you kind of walk into your office and you go to Leo and you pick a design that you want in your office to work in. So you'll have your glass on, you'll walk into your office and you're like, I want to have this scene of the beach in front of me behind my desk. And so then you like instantly buy it through Leo and you have this automatic environment surrounding you. Or you're going into like your bedroom and you want to have yoga, you'll have this like scene of the mountains and candles that change colors every 5 seconds.
It's kind of like that Zoom virtual background come to life, right?
Yeah. Just in like 3D version and in your actual environment. Because I think like you really believe what you see. Like the sight is such a strong sense of the 5 senses. So, maybe there will be sounds and stuff. I don't know how that will work because I do think eventually there will be sounds and smells somehow to make it realistic.
Right.
That comes along with more science.
And did you, so I founded a tech company several years ago, and I didn't personally have a tech background. And for myself, I found it challenging when it came to product management and overseeing teams that were actually, building the product because I was not a software engineer per se. And I'm just curious, I know you had mentioned to me when we first met that you also didn't have a tech background. Did you find that there were any hardships involved with that in launching your business or not so?
Because this is my second company, I obviously find it less difficult to do it because I already had kind of an existing team that I've been working with for a long time. And kind of my head of engineering is obviously doing all the management for the engineers. And I do most of the high level stuff, including like pitching and BD and vision and also product. But he does all the management. Like I don't know how to build a company without either a CTO or a head of engineering because that's, like you said, it's so difficult to manage the product. And I did everything. Like I've tried working with third party outsourcing companies that help you to kind of manage the engineers, and that never worked out. So I think the key is really finding your CTO or head of engineering.
Yeah, amen to that. So if
Yeah.
you're out there and you want to build a tech company, make sure one of your co-founders is a hardcore tech person.
Yeah.
That'll be
For
a lot
sure.
easier. So let's talk about some of your hacks, because I thought that some of the things that you had shared with me were so interesting. So tell us what would be some of the top 3 hacks you would recommend to founders who are starting out and maybe like you are in San Francisco, are in need of extra runway. I mean, what would you suggest?
Yeah. So one of the things I think is really important to teach aspiring entrepreneurs is to start early. And start early means reach out to investors as soon as you can. I think for a lot of entrepreneurs that are trying to make it, especially for women, they always they're so realistic that they're like, okay, when I launch my product, then I'll go out and fundraise. Or when I build this, I'll go out and fundraise. Or when I find my designer or find my co-founder, I'll go out and do it. But really, I say as early as possible, go out and talk to people. You really need to build the network and the community, even during COVID times. And don't rely on I have to have a live product or whatever. Always go out with a deck. It could be 5 pages, 10 pages on Keynote, with even some sketches or designs of what you're planning to build, because the first check you bring in is always because of you as a founder. It's not because of your product. So
Right.
I always say as early on as possible, go out, talk to people, get mentors, get advisors, find your team, but also meet with investors, because those investors you meet will start to see your progress. And usually the first check you get in is because of the progress you've made.
Mm.
And so if they saw you and you were laughable, you only had a deck, you didn't even have a product, you have no co-founder, but at least they'll remember you when you come back 6 months later and you have a co-founder and you're building an advisory board. They'll remember oh, she's done a lot in 6 months. She has a team. She's raised a little money. I think that's one big hack is start as early as possible.
Yeah, and I wanted to just add to that for listeners that you can think about it almost as informational interviews on the corporate side, where oftentimes you're looking to get a job, but maybe you're not ready to switch and start looking, but you want to educate yourself about a particular company or a particular field, and you ask people to set you up with interviews, and you're not in the room literally asking for a job, you're asking questions. And I do agree with you that I think the sooner you start to socialize the idea of your product, your company, and you with the community, the better. It's just if you actually go out and do a hardcore pitch and you don't have the metrics, you have to make sure that you know who you're pitching to and whether or not it's a proper fit at that stage.
Yeah.
So now take us on that journey. So did you find that it was really a big step forward for you to start early and start making these connections early on before you were even building your product?
Yeah, I mean, I like I mentioned, I had no background in entrepreneurship as far as I hadn't done any accelerators, and my whole life I'd been trained to be very humble. So I never told people I went to Yale. I never told people I was junior Olympic volleyball athlete, and then I did crazy master piano lessons, nothing. My dad was always so humble too. So we were all trained not to talk about it and just kind of work as much as you can. Mm-hmm. And so I think that really was tough for me when I first started. I had to learn how to pitch myself. I literally took probably an entire 30 days to learn how to pitch myself without turning red, without getting super uncomfortable. It was a very hard step to make.
Wow.
So I really had to practice. I just took a ton of videos in my iPhone of myself, pitching the product, and not relying on a physical real app or a website to kind of help me draw, build the picture around what I wanted to build. So, I took a lot of practice, and obviously I'm not from Silicon Valley, and I didn't have a Stanford network. So obviously I had to build it from scratch. And I did a lot what you just said. I reached out on LinkedIn and asked for coffee dates. I'm to try to get information from people you're an amazing entrepreneur. How did you get started? And you meet other entrepreneurs. They're willing to open up their connections. And so it's a mix. It's not just going after VCs. It's meeting other entrepreneurs who are willing to help you in the space.
Yeah, that's a really great piece of advice. We are unfortunately almost out of time. I'm wondering, is there one last little jewel you want to throw out there?
Oh, I have two more really quickly. I
Okay,
always,
go.
if there's any women that, get pregnant and stuff in the process, I always say it's a pretty safe bet to like enter an accelerator. I think so accelerators beyond, even if you're a first time founder, I always suggest joining an accelerator just to kind of get above the riffraff and get the little filter that you need. It's a great place when you're pregnant to kind of have the support and community for your co-founder while you're going through this process of delivering a baby. So that's my second hack. And then my third hack is hiring remote teams. I think it's when you're bootstrapped, it's a really great way to extend the lifeline of your business.
And that's what you've done with your tech team, I'm presuming?
Yes. I've been working remote since 2012.
And do you want to say what country you like to work with, or does it not matter?
Well, my co-founder was from Turkey, Istanbul, and I had done everything from hiring third parties to trying to recruit kids from Stanford and working on the campus. I did everything. And hire remotely, you feel like the engineers are really excited to work with a Silicon Valley-based company, and they're super appreciative, and they're also a little bit more mature as far as, you can get someone that's 4 or 5 years out from college with experience in other countries. And I don't know, it's just a different vibe, but it's a bit more positive, and they're cheaper, and they're just as good, talented. You don't necessarily need to go to like a 4-year base school to be an engineer these days.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So Dana, please share with us information about Leo AR before we sign off. So if people want to download your app, where would they go?
Sure. You can go to leoapp.com. We're also in the Apple App Store and Google Play Store under Leo AR.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again. This was great. I love your suggestions, and I'm sure our listeners did as well. So thank you again, and tune in next week for more startup hacks. We've got another great show that you won't want to miss on the secret female founder strategies that will save you time and money when building your business. This podcast is brought to you by We Global Studios, the first startup innovation studio and digital do-it-yourself startup platform for women entrepreneurs around the world. For more information on our guests, this podcast, and many other female founder programs, please visit weglobalstudios.com. I'm your host, Fernanda Carapinha, and we will see you next week.